This has been, I don't know about annual, but pretty close to it. The University of Michigan coming off two really damn good football seasons. Lost in the semifinals to TCU, beat Ohio State back-to-back years. Lost in the semifinals last year, too. And then Jim Harbaugh, it's just a little bit of drama. Like Aaron Rodgers, whether he's coming back from Green Bay. And here is the number, or the note. I love the relationships that I have at Michigan, coaches, staff, families, administration, President Santa Ono, and especially the players and their families. My heart is at the University of Michigan. I once heard a wise man say, "Don't try to out happy. Excuse me. Go blue." Jim Harbaugh's back at Michigan. We can all breathe and sleep tonight.
Yeah, I don't know how. Like, we're gonna have to do this every year. Is that what we have to do?
Matt Rule, kind of,
Yeah. He had a virtual interview with the Broncos last week. That's the only thing that's happened. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going to have to happen for Jim Harbaugh to stop chasing the NFL or Michigan to get tired of it. But
yeah, I mean, that's what I think I was saying during the playoff run was like that just stinks for Michigan that here you are, you're in the playoffs, you were feeling really good about beating TCU until you didn't. But, not the entire time, but a good portion of that you're sitting there, having to deal with rumors about your coach leaving. It just reminded me of Baylor with Matt Rule and how that was for a good 2 years at least. I mean, they won one freaking football game, and that following offseason, he was rumored to be going to, like, the Jets or whatever it was. And it's like, wait, what? They just went 1-11. How is that even possible? Now, it's probably agents talking, building buzz or whatever. But that was, only a 3-year stint and, not even 3 off seasons? I guess if you counted the one prior, it would have been. But that was a short window, really, when all was said and done, and yet it was frustrating. It was totally frustrating because you could never get on board with the future all the way. Like, hey, it's great you're building this recruiting class. Are you going to be here to sign it? Like, is it going to still be standing when you may or may not leave at the end of December or whatever? So, like, everything that happened, you're like, great, but will it matter? And so, for Michigan, it's not quite that stark, but it is, I would imagine, very frustrating to have to go through this, what has seemingly now become an annual thing of won't he go back to the NFL? And I don't know, like, just to me, every year with a new flirtation just tells me that there's some desire there on his part. I don't think it's just financial. I think he could sit in Ann Arbor and be fat and happy and rich for a long time if he wanted to be, but there's clearly some pull there. And he's been there. He's been successful. So I totally get it. It's like, if that's your dream, dude, go live it. I'm not going to disparage you for that in any way. I'm not going to disparage anybody for going and doing what they want to do. But from a Michigan fan standpoint, yeah, it's maddening, I would think, at this stage. No matter how successful he's been, no matter if he beat Ohio State, no matter if he got in the playoff, fact of the matter is that was going on. And much like with Matt Rule at the very end, Baylor makes the Sugar Bowl. The whole week in New Orleans.
Yep.
It wasn't about being in the Sugar Bowl. It wasn't about being in New Orleans. It was about, oh, my God, Matt Rule's leaving. The entire week was about that. Every show, that was what we were talking about, and it was maddening. And I didn't blame him. I don't blame him. But it was maddening from just an observer standpoint, and I know the fans were very vocal in how frustrating that was. So then, in comparison, there was Michigan. Here's TCU in a playoff, and what are they talking about a lot of the time? They're talking about, is Jim Harbaugh going to be here or not? And that sucks, man. That sucks for fans, but I know it's part of the deal, and you can't have it perfectly.
Baylor's had 2 bowl weeks that have been
there's
soured
the
because of coaches in demand, Art Briles before they played UCF in the Fiesta Bowl, and then also the Matt Rule before they played Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Not saying that the results would have been different because Georgia beat them up, but
so did UCF.
Yeah, so did UCF. Beat the Blake Bortles and company, just dominated that game.
Yeah, and look, you can, for Jim Harbaugh, it can't be about money because realistically, half the teams in the NFL wouldn't pay him as much as he's making in Michigan.
No.
So, he's going to make way more at Michigan than he will for most of the teams in the NFL until that ratio changes. And there are schools of thought where, I have it. I think his job at Michigan is way harder than it would be if he was the coach of the Broncos because at the Broncos,
I'd say just based on recruiting.
Yeah, the recruiting alone, his job's way harder. The Broncos, there's a free agency period, and the guys that you want, you bring them in. The draft.
I know, but did you see the Broncos this year? That's a hard
Well,
job.
I mean, yeah, but it's hard, but like it's still easier than telling a 17-year-old kid you're the only thing we need. Please come
but
here.
Michigan's pond
Save
is
me.
a lot larger than everybody else's.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
still.
but there's no cap to it. In the NFL, there is. I mean, I don't think there's any question it's less stressful. I mean, and the stakes are as high, and certainly higher, I think, in the NFL. But, I mean, as far as the stress of the job, I'd imagine they're at least even, if not a tip of the cap to the college ranks, because in the NFL, he's not driving around in a freaking shuttle van from the airport with his assistant coaching staff going to see some guy in Opelika to try and, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
It's
but
not even,
the
you know,
NFL is hard.
No, I know. I'm not turning this into an argument about
it's
what's
hard,
harder.
But it's gotten much closer on which is the more difficult job day in and day out.
It's not even difficulty. It's frustration level.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you have to go and like convince a teenager to come play for you, and all of a sudden you're in a bidding war with your arch rivals over this guy. Whereas in the NFL, you lose what games you lose, you fall in the draft where you fall, and then you make the best of it, and that's where you go. And guess what? In the negotiations, there's an end point because there's a cap on it. So I think, you know, there's definitely reasons to be more NFL job be more desirable. On the flip side, I could see the other side of the coin, and clearly he's, you know, siding with college. That's great news for Michigan. As frustrating as it might be, that's great news. Something doesn't seem right in the department, though, with the way this is all kind of unfolded. And so it makes you wonder if this is just, not the end, but another chapter, and then we'll be doing this all over again next season.
I agree. I do think that because of the way everything is open-ended with the NIL and transfer portal, despite now phases, that one of the biggest differences in a pro job compared to a college job is a college job you had time down. You had downtime. You had vacation. You could go anywhere. That's now, of course, closed quite a bit. Now, how about this on Denver? Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, who was a finalist the last time they were open, have emerged as the leading candidates or coaching candidates, according to Ian Rappaport. Of course, now with Harbaugh off the table, you wonder about Quinn. Depends on what the Cowboys do tonight. Will that change who their head coach is if they go one and done like they've done many times? Haven't won a road playoff game in 30 years. Favored tonight, even against Brady, 8-9 against 12-5. But Peyton, Quinn, and Harbaugh were the names that Rappaport had as the candidates for the Broncos.
Yeah, and